Government secrets. There's a trunk full of bodies and stories and programs the government had tried to keep for years from view. And history is littered with tales that eventually breed conspiracy theories. It's not hard to let your mind wander to dark places. But with things like Operation Paperclip, MK Ultra, hell, even the NSA, the government does a horrible job of easing our fears. History will show they have something to hide. So why haven't they learned their lesson by now? Come on. We're living in the golden age of government secrets, and just about every conspiracy theory glistens with truth. So maybe you're not so crazy after all. Judge Napolitano weighs in on modern history. We're going to go back a few decades as well. Can you keep a secret? Good. Neither can we. This is The Independents. Hey there, I'm Kennedy, your hostess in blackness, and I'm shrouded in men with Reason Magazine editor-in-chief Matt Welch to my left, and to his left, it's Camille Foster from Free Think Media. Together we are The Independents, and it's going to get crazy. People's views on government secrets change with every generation. There are momentary fixations and others that take years to disprove or dispel. A new Rasmussen report survey shows 1 in 4 adults, 24%, are convinced the U.S. government knew in advance about the September 11th terrorist attacks and did nothing to stop them. 23% believe the theory that President Obama is not an American-born citizen, and 20% believe a UFO carrying aliens crashed in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947, and 45% of Americans believe, get this one, that JFK was killed by one shooter. Come on, people. That's up from 36% in November. So how do these ideas get stuck in people's heads, and when do government secrets become full-blown conspiracy theories, and when did you get so crazy? Let's ask our party panel, because they know. It's Jesse Walker. He's the books editor at Reason Magazine. He's also the author of The United States of Paranoia, A Conspiracy Theory, which is an awesome book. You have to get it now, and you can read it throughout the show. We've also got Red Eye co-host Andy Levy. How can one Andy be so Levy? We'll find out throughout the show. All right, so why is government hiding so much from us? Don't they realize that it just breeds these kind of wacky ideas that we've got? Now, Jesse, I'm going to start with you. What is it about the United States of America that hides secrets from its citizens? This is supposed to be the land of the free, yet there's so little transparency when it comes to these government programs that have been going on for as long and far back as we can imagine.
Well, I think the number one reason why so many things get hidden or kept secret is because people have something to hide. I mean, if someone wants to cover their butt, that can be a reason why something gets classified, and it gets in the pile with the same pile as the things that actually involve national security. And the fact that people on the outside aren't sure which is one of the things that breeds paranoia. Absolutely, because if there's something to hide from you, I mean, we're all like little kids in that sense. That's the thing you really, really want to find out about. So, Andy Levy, I turn to you, good man. When do these government secrets turn into conspiracy theories? When do they cross the line?
Well, that's hard to say, but to me, it's not even as much is the secrets. It's stuff. It's Watergate. It's Iran-Contra. It's Bill Clinton lying about sex. It's WMDs in Iraq. It's James Clapper lying under oath, et cetera, et cetera. All those things really did happen. So we've had a steady diet of the government lying to us for the last 40, 50 years, probably further back than that, but we're just talking about that. On top of which, we do have programs like, as you pointed out in the intro, like the CIA's MK Ultra, which used unwitting Americans in actual experiments. So, yeah.
Actual LSD.
Actual LSD.
It's not just LSD, but torture.
Yeah.
With universities.
Absolutely. So when you say, well, why do people believe the government had advanced knowledge of 9/11? It's in a lot of ways, it's because every time we're lied to by a public official, every time a president says, if you like your health care plan, you can keep your health care plan, et cetera, it makes it easier to believe in stuff that is kind of nonsensical, like the truther stuff. So I think that's, if the government would stop consistently lying to us, we might not believe in all these conspiracy theories.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Is there a difference between lies and secrets?
Sure, and sometimes the government does both, and these are places where the greatest conspiracies of all sprout from. Area 51 is a classic example. We only recently admitted as a country that Area 51 exists. They actually invoked state secrets privilege to deny that Area 51 existed because they didn't want to have to pay off the families of people who had gotten sort of radiation poison from all the old Soviet nuclear stuff that we were messing with there. And because of that, people said, okay, we saw all these crazy unidentified flying objects there, because there were actual, they were testing aircraft and stuff.
Alien aircraft, it turns out.
Come on now.
Not quite.
But so they did this, and then people within the government got involved in some of those alien conspiracies because they figured we could discredit the opposition here by making them look all kinds of crazy. So that's where these things kind of meld in an interesting and nefarious way.
And that worked for a while, Camille, didn't it? And there are people who say that you cannot name one conspiracy theory which came true. And those people would be named Michael Moynihan. But he doesn't believe in conspiracy theories at all.
And that would be wrong. But it is important to note that there's just a tendency in bureaucracies for secrecy to be used as a weapon for all intents and purposes. Bureaucracies are little fiefdoms that they have to defend in various ways. One thing that is very powerful is knowledge, and being able to hold on to certain information and not tell anyone else about it can be really, really useful. Certainly, we've seen that with intelligence agencies in the United States of America, where we knew quite a lot about the Soviets, for example, but that information was compartmentalized in various places, and the upshot was we had a bunch of really, really piss-poor Cold War policy that ended up being formed, and the proliferation of really nonsensical ideas, like the notion that there was this missile gap that totally didn't exist.
All right, so Jesse, what are some of the more satisfying government secrets that have been hidden from us that when they came to light, we're like, ha, I knew it?
Well, one of my favorites is COINTELPRO, and that officially came to an end in the early 1970s, but you still have people calling anytime there's secret police nosing around, it gets called COINTELPRO because it's become so infamous. And this was not just a case of the FBI's informants trying to infiltrate organizations, left-wing organizations, sometimes right-wing organizations, New Left, civil rights, but trying to sow paranoia once they got there and making people think that other people were the infiltrators. And they were doing this because they thought that these places were conspiring against the U.S. government. So you essentially had a government conspiracy to defeat subversive conspiracies by convincing the conspirators that they were being conspired against. And we're still living in that world today.
All right, from one poll to another, this time it's about Americans growing disdain for eroding civil liberties. A Pew Research poll asked respondents if they were concerned the government restricts freedom in order to keep us safe. In 2010, 27% of people responded yes, and just last year, 47% of people said yes, that the government is restricting our freedoms, claiming they're keeping us safe. What does this poll say?
This says that Edward Snowden revealed a bunch of stuff and people freaked out. Pew Research has been asking this since 2004, and for understandable reasons, because we all remember 9/11 a little bit more urgently in 2004. That number of us who've been scared of a next terrorist attack has been higher than the number of us who are scared of our actual government response to it up until July 2013. That is just 2 months after Edward Snowden started doing this, and I think a lot of people looked around and said, oh my God, my cell phone is spying on me. Nothing is sacred anymore, and that's scary.
And it's time for a readjustment. And you point this out, Andy, because in 2001 we were told that this is the new normal. But 13 years later, what should we be expecting?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of us sort of accepted that in the post-9/11 world, this was going to be the new normal. But I think a lot of Americans now are saying, well, hang on, I don't want that to be the new normal. I want, if we have to have something like the Patriot Act, which hopefully we don't, maybe we have to have it in the immediate aftermath of an attack. But 13 years later, with no end in sight, with a state security apparatus that just gets bigger and bigger and spreads its tentacles into our lives, when we're kind of saying maybe we don't want that. And the other thing is, the government has more control over our daily lives than terrorists do. The odds of being hurt or killed in a terrorist attack are pretty damn small if you are living in America. The chances of it happening are pretty damn small. But you deal with obnoxious TSA agents, every time you travel. You deal with the government butting its way into your life.
Law enforcement has changed in light of 9/11.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've seen the police become more militarized and things like that. And on top of that, at this point, more Americans have probably lost a loved one in Iraq or Afghanistan than they did on 9/11. So I think a lot of people are just starting to say, okay, this is too much. We got to get away from this.
Well, the sea change in public opinion is pretty dramatic, and one has to wonder if that's not a consequence of what we're talking about here, secrecy. Yeah. The fact that we didn't know that these programs existed. The NSA pretty much did what it wanted to for a number of years, unchallenged by almost everyone. Until these revelations came out and we found out.
And let's remember, too, John Ashcroft went on a barnstorming tour in 2003 to go ha-ha at all the critics of the Patriot Act, saying, your fears of mass surveillance are unfounded. You're whipping up hysteria.
For no reason.
For no reason. He was lying right then, and we know that he was lying, and we're reacting accordingly.
All right, we're going to get some historical perspective on government secrets in moments with your very favorite history professor. And a little later, the judge is going to walk us through the compounding national security crises decades in the making. Stay with us.
Grandmother suits was tailor-made. Sundays Mahalia played simple, familiar ways, like how she knelt and prayed. Willing, Master, forgive us. Our trespasses had us real afraid. I never listened, yet I still obeyed. I got to see how Philly played at such an early age. What my father was into sent him to his early grave.
Flow like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Edward Snowden wasn't the first to realize the government has something to hide, and every conflict either starts or ends with a bad government program whose results are deemed too hot for the public to handle. From Operation Paperclip, that gave Nazi scientists jobs after World War II, to the Gulf of Tonkin incident that got us into Vietnam, what are some of the big secret programs that had disastrous consequences? Let's ask Thaddeus Russell, Dr. Thaddeus Russell, a professor at Occidental College, just outside lovely Los Angeles, California. Dr. Russell, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Bad Thad, as I should call you. So let's talk about the history of some government secrets and some bad government programs that were possibly well-intentioned when they started out, but had some pretty bad consequences down the road.
Sure. Well, I mean, Operation Paperclip, you mentioned, I mean, this was an incredible program in which the United States essentially kidnapped almost 2,000 Nazi scientists right after World War II, and then subsequently hired them to work on military intelligence and technology through the 1950s and 60s and into the 70s even. The Man on the Moon mission, the main scientist for that was Wernher von Braun, who was not only a member of the Nazi Party, but also was a member of the SS. So to the Man on the Moon mission that we just celebrated a few weeks ago, you have a Nazi scientist to thank for that. And I think this is very important for one reason.
By the way, like, the fact that we were housing all these Nazis to hurt the Germans in Russia, it's not good.
Not to mention the fact that we didn't get a whole lot of scientific value out of that mission, but that's another story. One of the things interesting to me about this, and very important, is that, you know, of course, World War II was sold as the Great War, a war against fascism, a war to eradicate Nazism. So I think the government kept that secret, Operation Paperclip, a secret for that reason, to maintain this idea that we fought this war to eradicate fascism. It was actually a very cynical war on the part of the United States. They were interested in maintaining control over Europe. They wanted to get those very valuable scientists out of Europe before the Soviets could get control of them.
Well, I mean, in some ways, though, there's an easy kind of devil's advocate here, which is that, hey, we wanted to be able to control rocketry as a country, and it's better that we have these scientists. And we did the same thing after the end of the Cold War, too, right? We hired a bunch of Soviet nuclear scientists so that they wouldn't go to some new bad guys, right?
Well, I mean, sure. I mean, whether the massive military buildup was a good thing for humanity or not is a different thing we could litigate. But the point is that the United States didn't really fight World War II with the aim of eradicating fascism. I mean, that's clearly what it was not about for the United States. It was about maintaining control of the industrial core of Europe, and that's what they accomplished, in part by stealing those scientists from the Soviets.
And some of those scientists were bad people, like Eugene Hagen.
Well, many of them were actually active members of the Nazi Party, as I mentioned.
Yeah, so that one doesn't sit well, but let's talk about some of the others, especially the Gulf of Tonkin, which was the impetus for our engagement in the Vietnam War. Tell us about that and why that's still controversial to this day.
Right. So Lyndon Baines Johnson said that the North Vietnamese attacked U.S. boats in the Gulf of Tonkin. Turns out later that wasn't exactly the case. At least it wasn't unprovoked. It was probably provoked. We're not exactly sure. But the main point is that Congress gave subsequently Johnson and the presidents following him the right through the Tonkin resolution to essentially wage war without congressional approval, without Congress declaring war, which is, of course, its most important congressional power. And so this is a stunning moment in American history when Congress gives over its most important power to the president. And of course, Vietnam was prosecuted, the war was prosecuted by Johnson and Nixon with virtual impunity from Congress.
And the shroud of secrecy was certainly pretty essential there to kind of keeping how bad everything was from the American people so you could continue the conflict and escalate it.
Right. I mean, Tonkin happened when most Americans were vaguely aware of Vietnam. He needed a pretext. He needed something. He needed it to be a secret thing. He needed it to be something that wasn't true, absolutely true, to sell it to the American people, and to win over Congress. I mean, really, if you think about Congress sort of voluntarily giving over this power, it's really a stunning moment. And they didn't really seek answers. They didn't really seek proof that this was an unprovoked attack from the North Vietnamese.
And we were only halfway, a little over halfway through the century. Let's talk about quickly. We only have a little bit of time left, but Iran and Iraq in the 50s and 60s, and the repercussions of the government secrets from them that are bearing unfortunate fruit now.
Right. So anyone who's ever heard of the theory of blowback needs to know about 1953 in Iran. This is when, in a way, it really all started. And this may be the worst case of blowback ever. 1953, the democratically elected head of state in Iran, Mossadegh, decided to nationalize a British oil company in Iran, nationalize the oil resources there. And the CIA, which was, by the way, the CIA in Iran, which, by the way, was headed by Teddy Roosevelt's grandson, Kermit Roosevelt, launched what was called Operation Ajax, another stunningly cynical name for an operation, which overthrew Mossadegh and installed the Shah of Iran. And then subsequent to that, the CIA trained the Shah's notorious secret police, the Savak, in the most advanced techniques of torture. They gave them names of communists who were thrown into dungeons and tortured for years or summarily executed. Of course, this gave rise to a radical Islamist, anti-American, anti-Western movement that ultimately took power in 1979 and gave us the regime we know and love so well today. So
you know what, Thad, I'm going to have to cut you off because we have to move on
Sure.
with more government secrets. And I'm sorry, but you need to come back in studio because we need to finish this discussion.
Absolutely. Love to.
All right. Thanks so much, Dr. Thaddeus Russell. How many people have top secret clearance, Clarence? The number will shock you, but how do you get it, and what does it get you? Find out next. Beard you. Tonight, it's all about government secrets. We hear all the time about people who have top secret clearance, but what does that actually mean? What kind of stuff can you check out when you've got that, and how easy or how hard is it to get? Well, let's ask a man who has tasted the privilege of top secret access. It's Bryan Suits, former Army officer and now radio host at KABC AM in Los Angeles, weekdays from 9 to noon. Suits, welcome back.
Thank you. Anytime.
Yes, absolutely. How about now? All right, so let's talk about how many people have top secret clearance in this country.
It works out to about like 1/10 of, well, it's roughly about 1.4 million that have top secret. If you mean clearances in general, probably around 3 to 4 million.
All right, so I've got, just over 4 million people have some form of government security clearance. But what does it mean when someone's got top secret clearance? What kind of secrets are they privy to?
When you, in certain enlisted jobs in the Marine Corps, Army, and Air Force, Navy, like a cryptologist or military intelligence, you get an interim, like a probationary student driver's license. And until you prove otherwise, that gets validated with a secret clearance, and then it gets updated. To become an officer, you have to be a citizen because you have to have a clearance. And what that basically means is you've passed a criminal background check, these days a credit check, et cetera. It's funny because the load-in is pretty easy to get in. And then once you're in, you just have to keep your nose clean, and you get upgraded at consistent levels. They give you one of these.
Nice. And what was your highest clearance? Was it top?
Top secret.
Nice.
Special compartmentalized, yeah.
And what did you learn when you got top secret clearance? Did you immediately go in and find out who assassinated JFK and where the Roswell bodies are buried?
I can't even answer that. But what strikes me about it, what strikes me about it is how capricious they'll take them away, because you can have a guy who you know to be just a raging alcoholic or something, and he'll keep his clearance and he'll get upgraded. But a guy who misses one child support payment, his gets yanked. When you're in theater, you're in Afghanistan, you're in Iraq, you have a guy who can do his job really well. He misses his direct deposit for his child support. Miss Angry ex-wife gets on the phone, and they will yank his clearance, and it takes a year to reinstate it. So it is kind of weird what they pick and choose, who keeps it and how they keep it.
At the risk of inflating our figures further, I mean, the numbers that I saw when we looked at contractors, government employees, and others was somewhere around like 5.1 million people that actually have some form of clearance. And apparently they're minting like 750,000 people like every single year or something like that who are being approved for clearance in some way, shape, or form. Is that right? And what is the denial rate like? I saw that the numbers seem to be pretty low for folks like the NSA, like surprisingly low, fewer than 10%.
I think you have to have a felony conviction or financial misfeasance, malfeasance, have a horrible credit score, something like that, because there is still a backlog. But in the old days, the old, go and interview your high school chemistry teacher and all that, those are long gone. Everything is done electronically now, including Googling you. And so it really takes an effort to not get one. Once you're in a job that requires one, all the institutional momentum is towards you getting one. And then I've worked as a private contractor in Africa, et cetera. It makes it easier to get the job. If you already have the clearance, then the private company is going to save $90,000 because you're waving around your get out of jail free card from the U.S. government. But I personally know some people that I wouldn't trust as far as I can throw them, and they have clearances higher than me. So.
Suits, shouldn't we all have secret clearance?
Hell no. Good Lord, no. There's so many people. There are so many people who would run right out of the SCIF, the Special Compartmentalized Information Facility, run right out and start yelling all about what our UAVs can do, and oh my God, the satellites can read a menu and all that. No, they don't need that.
Agree to disagree. Suits, thanks. All right, it's time to play a game. Can you tell the difference between actual government conspiracies and fictional movie plots? Andy Levy and a very special guest, the Ungar Games. Next, stay with us.
I used to read Word Up magazine, Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine, hanging pictures on my wall. Every Saturday, rap attack Mr. Magic Molly.
Oh, hi. Welcome back. Sometimes government secrets are so imaginative, they hardly seem real. And sometimes movie plots are so intriguing, they seem to materialize out of the pages of sensitive CIA manuals. Fact or film? Can you tell the government secret from fluffy popcorn fodder? Let us play. We've got Rick Ungar, the Forbes senior political contributor, and Andy Levy is back. These gentlemen, they want money, but today we're not playing for scratch.
We're not?
We're paying for pink slips.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I don't know what you drove here today, Rick, but
I'm out of here.
it's probably nice in the New York City taxi I rode in.
No doubt.
Are you guys ready to play?
Let go.
Anyone gonna claim they're gonna win?
I got it. In the bag.
You got this one? Okay.
Totally.
All right, well, listen up, Buttercup.
Got to win at least once, I guess.
Whoa.
Number one, is this fact or film? The NSA spies on a U.S. senator instrumental in establishing the court which regulates U.S. overseas surveillance. Fact or film? That was, in fact, fact. During the Cold War, the NSA spied on 2 U.S. senators opposed to the Vietnam War, including Frank Church, who subsequently set up the court, which now oversees U.S. surveillance abroad. Well done, gentlemen. Everyone's got one on the board, and here is number 2, fact or film. A lawyer becomes a target by a corrupt politician and his NSA goons when he accidentally receives key evidence to a serious politically motivated crime. And you're all right. We made these 2 easy. We've got a 4-way tie after question number 2. That was Enemy of the State, starring Will Smith and Gene Hackman.
Was that a Spike Lee joint?
No, Tony Scott.
Tony Scott.
Do I get
No,
extra
it
points
wasn't.
for
Rosie Perez was not in that.
Okay.
Okay. This is number 3. A comedy of errors in which a nuclear bomb is accidentally dropped over North Carolina, but miraculously does not explode. Fact or film? God, we totally made these crazy.
We're good. We're good.
Okay. No, it's true. In 1961, a B-52 carrying 2 nuclear bombs broke up in midair, dropping its payload in the process. Defense Secretary Robert McNamara said, by the slightest margin of chance, literally the failure of 2 wires to cross, a nuclear explosion was averted.
Can't believe that happened.
Still in North Carolina.
Whoops. It is only North Carolina.
Not like it was Rhode Island.
Yeah,
Or anything.
no.
What's the problem?
North Carolina, the shore on North Carolina is quite lovely.
That's true.
And they've also got UNC. Big fan.
Yeah.
The
who
Gene
cares?
Dome.
Could have been Ohio State. That would have been a disaster.
Is that where you went?
Yeah.
Oh, Rick.
Didn't everybody?
The Ohio State University. The largest college in America.
Ohio State
That's right.
University.
That's not pretentious. Here's number 4. A Cold War thriller where World War III is narrowly averted when the Soviets mistake a 40,000-person NATO war game as mobilization. Fact or film? Matt, you're in the lead. That is yes, that is actually a fact. Operation Able Art nearly led to World War III had NATO forces not initially assumed that Soviet mobilization preparing for what they believed to be combat was its own war game. Shots would have been fired. None of us would be here today to talk and laugh about it.
That's too, baby.
What a terrible thing that would be.
Wouldn't that be awful?
Well, it'd be worse if Matt wins.
Worse than Rick. Why don't you guys team up on him?
Well, we
Why don't
are.
you guys create
How
an
are we going
alliance?
to do
We're
that?
all
exactly?
aligned
Create
against
an alliance. Yeah, okay. I don't mind. I don't
want
mind
any
stealing
part of
bread
it.
from the mouth. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Number 5, a dark comedy where the CIA tests out mind control experiments on unwitting participants by drugging them with LSD in fake brothels. Brothels, not brothels.
Brussels. Brussels.
Brothels.
Brussels.
That is, in fact, yes. Operation Midnight Climax. Ow!
Oh, no.
Yeah. The CIA tested LSD on mental patients, prisoners, drug addicts, and prostitutes. It even built a fake brothel to ensure the men experimented on would be too embarrassed to talk.
I mean, a fake brothel, though, you've got to deliver at some point.
Yeah.
Who says the government doesn't know how to have fun?
How fake is that, in fact?
Well, I mean, it's like
I mean,
blazing
there are real
saddles.
prostitutes, there's real money exchange. That's a real brothel.
But the women were faking it.
Aren't they always?
Yeah. No.
Not in a good brothel.
Maybe for you,
In
Camille.
brothel, I've never visited a brothel. Thank you very much.
Really?
Not
This
what
is
I
so
heard,
the
but
opposite
hey,
of what you
it
said about
hurt.
45 minutes ago.
Not what I heard.
Yeah.
My mom is watching.
Well, now your mom knows.
We're sorry.
Okay, number 6. A 9-year-old boy is caught in intrigue when he cracks an NSA code in a puzzle book put there to lure out top cryptographers in the civilian population. Is this fact or film?
Do I get points for being first?
It
No.
is, in fact, film. Okay, so since there is a 3-way tie, we're going to go into...
For second.
It's
second.
tiebreaker
No, I mean,
question.
you could totally miss this.
Okay,
could
if
totally
you get
miss
this wrong,
Matt is the
you will
co-host.
tie with
He
other
didn't
people.
see the questions.
Yeah.
I'm just asking.
Okay, this is number 7.
All right.
A fast-paced political thriller in which the Joint Chiefs of Staff concoct a plan to kill Americans in a fake terrorism plot to justify invading Cuba. Fact or film? Camille, you got it wrong. That means Matt wins and Rick and Andy come in second place.
I hate second place.
Yeah,
You?
second place is lame.
At least you tied.
But we are the only ones who didn't see the questions in advance.
That's
so
true. That's true.
cool.
We are the guests.
That is not true.
right,
At least when these questions are in my charge, no one sees them.
Yeah, that's what they all say.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here.
Thanks,
a
Kenny.
pleasure.
Your loserness is sore.
Oh, that's really harsh.
I know, it is. I will not repeat what Rick Ungar told me to bar. Coming up, Judge Napolitano is here to reveal some of the biggest secrets government is keeping from us. We're going to talk about what's going on right now, torture, spying, and whistleblowers. The judge is next. Stay with us. And she found Sound delicious. All right, welcome back to The Independents. We've talked a lot about government secrets in history, but what about the here and the now, right now? Why hasn't the government learned its lesson? And why are we at such a peak in the secrecy cycle? Americans are sick of it. It's too easy for secrets to get out. So why do they bother trying? Judge Andrew Napolitano joins us. He is Fox News Senior Judicial Analyst and the man of the hour here at The Independents. So let's talk about some of the modern day government secrets that are wilder than any conspiracy theorist could have imagined 15 years ago.
Well, you know, the CIA was founded in 1947 as a result of a lot of different successful intelligence activity in World War II, and its charter says that its job is to steal secrets. Steal secrets means keep secrets as well. One of the secrets that they keep is that they have become the president's private army, and the president utilizes CIA assets which are formidable, and their hardware is as formidable as the United States military's, to wage private and, depending upon how aggressive the press wants, to get secret wars. We know of wars in Pakistan because we know of the reaction to those wars when the drones hit. We know of some of the wars in Yemen. We don't know of other wars. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't know where the other wars are. But the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States of America regularly, consistently, and systematically is dispatched by the president to kill people. And the legal
and not
theory...
just this president.
No, correct. Absolutely. This goes back to Eisenhower. The legal theory under which it is done is a statute which basically says the requirement that only Congress can declare war is somehow compensated for when the president informs the leadership of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees what he's doing, and they informally say yes. Now, this is radically unconstitutional because the power to declare war cannot be delegated by Congress to a committee of Congress, and it certainly can't be transferred by Congress to the President of the United States. So by not calling it a war, but it's a war in every other respect, its job is to use violence to topple a government. By not declaring it war, the Congress gets around the declaration of war requirement that only it can do it.
What's the constitutional or legality behind keeping all of this stuff secret? I mean, the CIA's budget has been historically a secret.
Edward Snowden,
the number of employees is a secret. Is there any constitutionality behind that?
No. No, there's no constitutionality behind it.
Or case law or something?
Well, no, there's no case law.
Should they be spying on Dianne Feinstein's computer?
Well, we're going to see how angry she is very soon when we see how much of the report on torture has been redacted and how much of her committee's report on torture has been redacted and how much of her committee's report on torture has not been redacted. We know that major players in the Bush administration, from General Hayden to John Rizzo, who was general counsel of the CIA for many years, are furious either at what's in that report or at what they expect to be in that report, and that of their inability, because of Senator Feinstein won't let them, to review the report before it becomes public.
As a matter of law, what things ought the government be keeping secret? What are they allowed to keep secret?
Well, as a matter of law, nothing. I myself would allow the same exception to the natural law that the modern-day originator of natural law, modern-day, St. Thomas Aquinas, would, and that is to save a human life. So the government can keep secret that which is necessary in order to bring about the immediate safety of a human life. But otherwise, the people have the right to know everything. Unless the consent of the governed phrase in the Declaration of Independence is just Jefferson's wild musings, it means what it says. If it means what it says, then the government can't know more than we know, unless it's to save an innocent human life. That I would grant, and only for the duration of time necessary to save the life.
Okay, so quickly, we know that it's really easy to dispel these secrets thanks to people like Edward Snowden and Chelsea Manning. Why does the government bother trying in this day and age? Because they're trying to keep so many right now.
Well, the government does not, in my view, want to justify to people like us, media, and people generally skeptical of government. That's the four of us and the many people watching this show right now. The government does not want to be in a position where it must justify to people like us what it has done. That's why there have been so few trials of the people in Gitmo. The government is terrified that we will learn the circumstances under which those people were arrested, the circumstances under which they were interrogated, the creeps, crawlers, bruisers, and bedwetters that the government got into bed with in order to accomplish its ends. And that's why it keeps secrets.
It is no secret that I adore you. Thank you very much for coming back,
Oh, the
Judge.
feeling is mutual. Thank you.
All
That
right.
goes for all three.
Oh, see? A lot of love. All of these government secrets end up costing all of us a lot of money, and the money is just the beginning. The cost of secrecy is next. Stay with us.
Come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set the night on fire. The time.
All right, welcome back. The government spends a lot of time and a lot of money hiding stuff from you and me, but how much should we care? There are costs to keeping all of these programs hush-hush, and it affects more than the bottom line, believe it or not. And thanks to Edward Snowden, we now know the cost of intelligence. They tried to keep that secret, too. So what's the total bill? Julian Sanchez joins us. He's a senior fellow at the Cato Institute. Julian, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
So what is the cost? What's the bottom line? How much are we spending on intelligence and keeping things secret?
So for 2013, that's the last sort of total numbers we have between the military intelligence program and the national intelligence program. It added up to about $72 billion in 2013. I think because of the sequester, that got actually knocked down to about $68 billion. But it's somewhere in the low 70 billions total, basically, every year for the last few years. It peaked in 2010 at about 80 billion and has been modestly declining since then.
And that was a federal department that would rank, I think, something like in the top 5 in terms of annual budget.
Yeah, it is a non-trivial set of costs, and until very recently, a completely secret number. I mean, until really just a few years ago, even the total aggregate budget we spent on intelligence was classified, was something the public could not know.
That's insane to me. I mean, we should know, even if we don't know the details of what they're doing, a lot of it, you know, perhaps we should know, at least we should be able to look at a spreadsheet.
You would think. I mean, you think about how wasteful government agencies are when they're not able to hide their spending behind a veil of secrecy. I mean, you guess how efficient that spending probably is.
Yeah, with that much money on the line, I mean, accountability and transparency, you can't have one without the other, quite frankly, become really, really important. So to that end, we get this thing from the Information Security Oversight Office, an annual report to the president, which apparently gives us some numbers on the actual number of classified documents. I looked at this thing. I had a difficult time trying to parse it out. 58,000 documents that were or original classification decisions, but then they start to talk about declassification, and they're only talking about it in terms of pages. Is it pages? Is it incidences? How on earth do we wrap our hands around how much information is being classified and kept from us?
I mean, it's difficult to quantify precisely because, in fact, it's so secret. They switched probably from decisions to pages for a couple of reasons. One is that a decision is required to classify something, but a lot of documents over time just sort of expire into the public domain, so to speak. It doesn't mean they're automatically released, but they're automatically declassified. So if you look at some of the Snowden documents that are floating around on the internet, you'll see somewhere on the bottom on a lot of them, declassify on some date in 2035. Also because, you know, people use email now, didn't use email before. That means a lot of the time a classified email exchange will just be pages and pages, the last 10 messages going back and forth. So
yeah,
the number of pages is like a hard,
it's hard to quantify
number
those. I want to talk quickly about, you know, we've talked about the cost in dollars. What are some of the other costs associated with keeping things secret? I mean, you talk about journalism and commerce.
Sure. I mean, so commerce is the one that you can at least sort of try to quantify. Forrester Research, the consulting firm, guessed or estimated that the U.S. cloud computing sector stands to lose something on the worst case scenario up to $180 billion in global revenue over a period of about 3 years. And that's just cloud computing. I think about companies like Cisco. We talked a while back about reports of their routers being intercepted and installed with bugs and spyware. They reported, I think, about a 10% drop in revenue one quarter. And that's very much localized in countries they're upset about about surveillance. So orders were down something like 25% from Brazil, 18% from China. Even stuff totally unrelated to computing. I mean, Brazil basically awarded a contract to Saab over Boeing, a plane contract that was worth $4.5 billion, and that was reported to be at least significantly in part because of diplomatic blowback from the NSA revelations. So significant, potential losses there. Surveys have shown that about a quarter of British and Canadian companies have already started moving data elsewhere because of privacy concerns. Other surveys have shown huge numbers of IT personnel are talking about getting data out of the U.S.
It's not that rad, and journalists have suffered, business people suffer, those who own businesses and those who are trying to buy certain products. Your choices are diminished when other countries get involved and decide that they don't want our products because we've kept too many secrets. Julian, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coming up, not everything is a conspiracy. When healthy skepticism becomes dangerous paranoia and mental illness, we're here to keep you informed, yet sane. That's next. Cool, Treasury Department. I think we've established that sometimes the government keeps really bad things hidden from us. We've also established that sometimes conspiracy theories are true. But just because you can't always trust the government doesn't mean that everything is a conspiracy. Birthers and truthers, talking to you. So don't get paranoid. All right, so when do conspiracy theories that start out with good intentions turn bad?
It's admittedly difficult to try to dissuade these tortured souls who, in the absence of evidence, sort of build a house for themselves that is totally impenetrable, where I can believe just about anything. But if you are a right-thinking person who believes that government is very large and occasionally does things right, but more often than not screws big things up, and that you simultaneously hold the belief that they can carry out some of the most sophisticated conspiracies known to man with malevolent intent, perhaps wiring, say, a building in downtown Manhattan and carrying out the controlled demolition of said building on the most chaotic September morning in the history of the United States, you need to do some soul searching. It's just not practical to hold both conclusions.
There's a flip side to that, which is that people use conspiracy theorists against people who are not conspiracy theorists. They use the word truther to describe people even who just oppose Obamacare, which happened this week in the New Republic.
Or skeptical of climate change.
Or who just want more data to be released about the intelligence report before September 11th. Ari Fleischer called people who wanted that truthers. That is wrong. We shouldn't use anti-conspiracy theories to marginalize legitimate questions.
And people who are healthy skeptics, like you. All right, so what do you have to say? What's the last word to truthers, Camille?
Secrecy is a form of regulation. We should be careful about how we use it. It's the last word to everybody.
All right, very good. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you so much for watching us tonight on The Independent. We'll keep all your secrets. We'll even hide your diaries, so you don't have to worry about that. We're going to be back next week with all new shows starting Monday at 9 at 6 Pacific on Fox Business. For Matt Welch and Camille Foster, I'm Kennedy. Thank you very much. Have a good night.